So hey everybody, welcome to ARE Live. I'm Mark Tier, the founder of Black Spectacles, and today we're going to hear from a panel of 3 architects who passed the ARE during stressful times in their lives. God knows that what we're going through now in 2020 is certainly a stressful time, so we thought this would be beneficial for all of you to hear how they tackle these exams. They'll give you some good insight into how to stay focused, how to carve out time to study, how to overcome exam day jitters, and how they ultimately completed all of the divisions. A quick mention about Prometric. So as many of you may know, testing centers are currently open, but with reduced capacity. So there aren't as many seats as they usually have. So we encourage you to register for your exam as soon as possible so you can get a seat. In addition to this, as you might have heard, NCARB has announced that starting on November 16th, 2020, you can register to take the ARE online without going into the testing center. There's no changes to the content or the division structure, and you can still take the, if you don't want to do this, if you don't want to take it online, you can still go in and take the exam in person if you wish. So it's nice. You're going to have, starting November 16, 2020, you're going to have some really good options to make sure that you can get through this exam. We're going to go ahead and post a link in the chat here and GoToWebinar for you to visit NCARB site for all the details. For those of you who are new and joining us for the first time here, Black Spectacles is the first ever NCARB approved test prep provider for all 6 of the ARE 5 divisions. We offer comprehensive test prep for the ARE with video lectures and practice exams and flashcards and virtual workshops. It's all available online with memberships either for individual architects or for firms or AIA chapters or schools. So there's tons of options. If you want to learn more about our individual memberships and check out the materials, we're dropping a link in GoToWebinar right now. You can also go to blackspectacles.com for that. Or if you want to figure out how to have your boss pay for your membership with a firm license, just fill out the firm on our firm page, blackspectacles.com/pricing/group/firm, and you can get more information there. Our next ARE live broadcast is going to be on October 15th, 2020. We're going to review a project development and documentation mock exam with our resident expert, Mike Newman. We'll cover PPD knowledge and skills relating to building materials, building systems, detailing and documentation, project specs, and so on and so forth. You guys know this is a big test, the PDD test. So studying for this one is always valuable. So be sure to not miss it. And then today, we're going to be engaging exclusively in our online ARE community. So head over to that thread if you haven't already. And here's how you do it. We're going to share a link here in GoToWebinar. But if you don't have the link, you can just go to community.blackspectacles.com and you can click on ARE Live and then find the featured subjects, and you'll find today's post about how to pass the ARE during stressful times. So I encourage all of you guys to, if you have questions or comments as we go along today, then I would suggest hopping over to our community. And we're all going to be answering questions here. I'll be there. A couple of other colleagues will be here as well, and so forth. Everyone who posts on our ARE community will be eligible to win a free Black Spectacles t-shirt at the end of the podcast. So stay tuned to see if you win. And frankly, just go there right now, community.blackspectacles.com, find this thread and just say hi, or just make a comment about, your feelings about, stressful times and passing the ARE. And if you do that, bam, you're entered to win a free t-shirt. And then lastly, today we have a special discount on Black Spectacles individual memberships, which we'll share at the end of the show. So that's all the intro. Now let's talk about our guests. So today I'm joined by 3 architects. First, we have Josh Mings. He's a senior associate at Antunovich Associates here in Chicago, where he's been active with the Core Spaces Studio, working on student housing projects around the country. Josh has worked with Black Spectacles here as a coach in our group coaching program and numerous other projects as well. He currently serves as a co-chair of AIA Chicago's Design Knowledge Community, has presented at multiple Pachacacha Chicago nights, and is a member of both Logan Square Preservation and Open Architecture Collaborative Chicago. So welcome, Josh. Secondly, we have Jenny Kivett. For the last 3 years, she's been an adjunct instructor at the University of Colorado, Denver. She started her career as a university professor of architecture, teaching at multiple universities. And she's worked on and led projects receiving awards, including the NCARB Prize, the AIA Education Honor Award, the Wood Design Award, LEED Platinum Certification, and the Charles E. Peterson Prize. She is also an author, contributing to several books and publications on architecture. So welcome, Jenny. We're also joined by Logan Knox. Logan graduated from North Carolina State University in 2017 with a bachelor's of architecture. He then moved to Pennsylvania, where he joined Bolin Sawinski Jackson as a designer on academic projects. So welcome, Logan. So thank all of you. You guys are all welcome to unmute yourself, of course. Josh, Jenny, and Logan. Thank you guys all for joining us today. I'm just going to jump right in. So maybe let's just jump to our first slide here. So we're here to talk about, wrestling with passing these exams during stressful times. Josh, you want to tell us your story about, your timeline for testing and where you were in your life while you were taking the ARE?
Yeah. So as far as when I tested, I actually, unlike Jenny and Logan, I took all my exams when it was back in ARE 4.0. I actually started about a year or so after school. I was working at a great, smaller firm at a time that, to this day, extremely supportive of, of their employees getting licensed. And so I just kind of really started. It was the lifelong, goal to be an architect and to legally call myself an architect. So I kind of, in the beginning, did the whole, I'm going to do a test here and a test there. Not really too structured. But back in 2014, there was a few kind of pivotal events that ended up happening that kind of changed after. Like first, I actually failed one of the 7 at that time exams, and that with some other things kind of put me in a funk, and I was already in a bit of a depressive episode at that time. And that kind of caused me to just like not even pay attention to the ARE for a while. And then on top of that, my mom passed away in that December of 2014. Believe it or not, that episode kind of triggered, after, a few months of grief, of course, the kind of the call to finish up the AREs, which in early 2005, I basically just, beginning, I believe in March of 2005, I just took it, one a month and just got it done. And that's kind of really, the emphasis of how my schedule went, is once I ended up getting this motivation / something to really take my mind off of all the other things that was happening, because I have a habit of using work to, kind of ignore some things on occasion, some bad things that are happening, and just kind of really hyper focus on work. And that's what I did. I kind of like hyper focused on the AREs, in early 2015 to really just get done.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So first of all, really sorry to hear about your mom passing, and that certainly incredibly stressful. It's interesting to hear that idea of using, the test as a way, as almost a distraction. Jenny, can you tell us your story?
Sure. I graduated in 2008, and many might remember there was an economic recession at that time.
Yeah, sure.
And so it was difficult to get a traditional job. Also, at that point, the process was in order. You had to get your education and finish it, and then you could do your IDP and finish it, and then you could start your exams. But it's pretty hard to get your IDP hours if you're not working a traditional job in a firm under a licensed architect. And I'd always wanted my career path to take me to a professorship, but I didn't think it would happen 3 months after I graduated. It just happened because of the economic situation at that time. So I started teaching immediately, and I did that for several years, but wasn't able to actually earn any IDP hours in that process. So then I wasn't allowed to actually start my exams. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it took me a while to, I started a family in 2014
Hmm.
and decided that I wanted, if I was going to be a good professor, I wanted to be a licensed architect. And so I went back and I sort of left teaching, and decided to go try to find a traditional practice job. And so started in 2014, and I worked in several firms, and I earned all my IDP credits in 3+ years. And I
Hmm.
started, and at that point, they had kind of merged things and said, okay, well, you can kind of do these things together if you want, but I still kind of took the original path of finishing IDP first, and I think that was just mostly out of fear. But so I finished IDP and then started the exams in 2017, and I had a lot of setbacks. I started in 4.0, and I did you could do the 3 exams in 4.0, and then you can transfer to 5.0, and you could take 2 exams. And I was like, that sounds like a great deal. I only want to take 5 exams. And of course, I ended up taking 9 because I failed a lot. But I did it so that I could transfer, and I did the last 2 in 5.0. But during that 3 years, there were a lot of it was a difficult process for me. Like I said, I failed a lot, and there was one person as an employee at the Prometric Center that told me I had more reports on my record than anyone he'd ever seen,
Yeah.
which was shocking but when I look back on it, it was really difficult. I was just plagued with problems. Internet connectivity problems. My computer had failed. I had people like my cursor. Oh, there was one time where my computer just blinked on a 1-second interval, for the whole test. All sorts of crazy technical errors, things that happened to me. And Prometric was always really good about it, and NCARB was always really good about it. The last time that I had there, and I should say there were definitely exams that I failed because I wasn't ready for them. But the last exam that I took would have been in January of this year, and I was going to take those last 2 together. It should have wrapped them up for me,
Hmm.
but I failed one because of a technical problem with my computer and
Oh
NCARB.
man.
Oh, it was just so awful.
Yeah.
And NCARB was really great, and Prometric was really great, and they reimbursed me the seat credit, and I rescheduled the seat credit. But because I'm right now I was an instructor at that time, and I scheduled it for spring break. But we all know what happened at spring break
Yeah.
this year.
Oh god.
So spring break this year comes around, I'm ready to take my test, and the center's shut down, and so I couldn't go in for that exam. And then I'm waiting around for the testing centers to open up again. And when they do, there's a 3-month wait. And so I schedule it for the end of August, and I have the 2 big ones left, and I schedule them back to back, and I'm just going in there, gonna get them done with, and finally be rid of it. So that was my timeline, and I think I got it done in about 3 years.
Yikes. Well, it sounds like you had your fair share of stress, let's say, through your process as well. Hey, Logan, I would like to get your feedback here. I know there may be some connection problems. Logan, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Excellent. Working it.
Excellent. So, yeah. So, Logan, why don't you share your story with us?
Yeah, so my story is a lot shorter. It's a little more straightforward, but everyone's story is different. I graduated in 2017,
Hmm.
and I was actually because of the changes they made for ARE, 5.0, I was able to start getting um, experience hours when I was in finishing up high school, actually, because
Wow.
yeah, so I started it, and I wasn't doing anything extremely complicated then. I was just scanning documents and helping out on reports and things like that. But
Yeah.
I was still able to
Still,
start
that's
hours
awesome.
then. And so that gave me a bit of a head start. And then I also I was able to kind of, it wasn't quite a gap semester, but between the 5th-year program and the 4 years before that, I had a semester where I was able to work full time. So again, I was stacking up hours before I even graduated. And so that kind of led me to, you know, I got out of school and I moved to Pennsylvania, where, you know, I'm from North Carolina. So I moved somewhere I had never been to before I accepted my job,
Yeah.
and didn't know anyone. So I ended up having a lot of free time on my hands. So I decided to do something, you know, once I got settled, do something worthwhile and get licensed. So I started, I think my first test was February of 2019, and I took both PPD and PDD in this August. So just finished up. Haven't
Oh,
finished up the
wow.
paperwork, so I'm not an architect yet. So
Yeah.
can't say that.
We'll call you an architect here.
Okay,
We want to be first.
there you go.
That's awesome. So you took a couple of exams in the middle of this craziness, so you have firsthand knowledge about what it's like in the testing centers now, probably with a mask on and dealing with all that stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, it was definitely a little unusual. I had originally had PPD and PDD. I took them 2 weeks apart, which
Hmm.
I recommend for anyone. But I had originally had them scheduled in May, but of
Okay.
course everything was you know, going down at that point. So
Yeah.
I rescheduled and moved them to August, which was kind of the soonest I could find them. And but yeah, I had to wear a mask going in, and the kind of check-in process was, they had adjusted that to promote social distancing, and you know, a couple of other tweaks like that. Hand sanitizer was available, but
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely required a kind of different mindset going in.
I believe it. Well, thank all three of you for sharing your stories and sort of the situations and the context for your, let's say, path or journey, I guess, through getting through the exams. I want to move on to the next question here, which is about motivation. We'll start with you, Jenny. Um, can you talk about what kept you motivated to cross the finish line?
Sure. It was a long and difficult process, and I think for a long time it was just sort of turtle in the hare situation where I was just, okay, I was the turtle. I was just going to do a little bit every day. Um, and eventually I kind of realized that I'm missing out on a lot of my life. I'm giving a lot of my spare time, my free time away to this when I would rather, of course, be spending it with my family. And I think everyone has something bigger than themselves, you know, that is helping them push them along in this journey.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was my family. I want to spend a little bit more time with them and less time on studying. And so I kind of set in my mind this final deadline that I was going to have it done by my 40th birthday. And if I didn't do it by then, I was just going to move on with my life.
Yeah.
And so I had everything planned out to be done by my 39th, just in case, because I had, again, been plagued with problems. And of course, it didn't happen by my 39th, but I had a buffer year there to
Yeah.
try to get them in. And I think with COVID happening, everyone's just kind of stuck at home. And I'm looking around and it's awful. And I think we can all agree it's awful and no one likes this. But it's very close to the life that I was living, studying every day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, everyone seems to think this is terrible. Maybe this isn't the life that I want for the rest of my life. So I was like, I'm going to get this done now. I'm going to get this done. This is it. This is the last stretch where I'm going to be hunkered down in my basement studying every night. And I just wanted it. I guess I just wanted it over with. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Um, I'm remembering I didn't exactly have a birthday deadline when I was doing it, but like I wanted to do it in a year. And so like having a time constraint certainly resonates with me. Logan, how about yourself? What did you do to keep yourself motivated to get through everything?
Yeah, similar thing. Time constraints are the biggest thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would set a test date out 3 months from whenever I was setting it up. And I would say, okay, I have 3 months to get ready for this test, and I would use that as my North Star, if you will. So I would set that 3-month date. I wouldn't start off immediately, because you have to give your time to like warm up to studying and things like that. You can't just dive in completely.
Yeah.
But I would kind of work backwards from that date and say, okay, these are the things I need to do. Here are the black spectacles practice tests I need to do. Here, are some other practice tests from other resources. Here are the books I need to read. And sometimes I would write it down for PDD and PD. I had a kind of vague schedule set out, but I would make a mental schedule and say, okay, these are the things I need to cover this week. I need to do this practice test and cover this section of the notes. And so I'd have that date lingering in the back of my mind saying, okay, that's my deadline. I have to do it. So that's kind of a fight or flight
yeah
response
awesome.
Trying to trigger, I guess.
Yeah. Josh, how about you? How did you get through this? How did you stay motivated?
So I think it was a few things for me. So first, it's kind of the culmination of a lifelong dream, which, I kind of blame, growing up, where I did in Columbus, Indiana for that. And,
for those of you that don't know, Columbus, Indiana has a massive amount of world famous architecture. Josh, I assume that's what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. And, so I basically kind of ended up having no choice but to be an architect, even though nobody in my family is. It's just like growing up around those buildings was like osmosis or something. It just kind of came in. It's like, that's what I want. Now I'm going to start playing with Legos and build, buildings. So, so part of it was that, just to be able to call myself an architect. That's kind of like the overarching one. Second, when I scheduled my exams, I didn't do them 3 months out. I actually did them about 1 month out, because just knowing me, I, didn't have it scheduled. I wasn't going to study. That's all there is to it. So that's kind of like one of my recommendations is, if you're going to start studying, get that date, get that test date, set, so you have something to work to. Otherwise, you kind of, at least for me, procrastinate a bit and not do it. And then after exams too, I kind of, just made sure to celebrate the fact that I took the exam, because these are huge undertakings. So you gotta, celebrate a little bit. Of course, in 4.0, I had to wait for my test scores, but now, you get yours immediately. So, but yeah, I mean, that's for the most part was the motivation. And then, after my mom passed, it was like, yeah, she's not going to want to see you kind of moping around, like, get off your butt and, finally get this knocked out kind of thing.
Yeah. I can certainly relate to the avoiding procrastination. I remember when I did mine, I actually scheduled all of my tests at this, like, in one fell swoop, so that like I'd already bought them all. And so for me, I needed the pain. I needed the prospect of that level of pain in front of me so that I could stay on track. Otherwise, I would definitely procrastinate and not get it done, which ultimately worked because I didn't want to have to reschedule. So it was kind of it was for me.
I want to defend procrastination a little bit. I think it's important to take some time off. So don't make it your entire life. That's all.
Yeah, here's what's cool about that, Logan, and this is what I've learned as I've listened to so many folks like you guys and talk about this, which is actually everyone's different, right? And everyone, so I wanted the pain and I wanted to not procrastinate. Logan's like, no, really procrastinate. And so if you're listening to this, you're like, well, wait a minute, what am I supposed to do? And the answer is, I don't know. You have to kind of decide for yourself. And what's fair is that everyone kind of thinks about it a little bit different. So what's cool is that we have different, we're kind of coming from different perspectives. So if you're listening to this, you can basically choose your best path, I suppose, or what seems most comfortable to you. Well, let's move on to the next one, which I think is really interesting, especially in the context of a stressful situation. And Logan, why don't we stay with you? How did you find time? I'm sorry. Time is one thing, but energy. How did you find the energy to study? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult right now because, even now, I'm still working from home, and I have been since March. And so kind of once I realized this was going to be lasting a while, I decided to go back to North Carolina and stay with my family for a while. So that definitely, maybe energy is not the right word, but that gave me some kind of motivation of mixing up the routine of my day, being around people. Whereas at first and now, I live alone, so it's whoever I'm talking to online and working with. But so it can be, if you're only by yourself and you're having to study at the end of the day, you've been staring at your computer all day, and then you have to look at reading material, it can be really tough. So I guess mixing up your schedule would be a good way to do that. Trying to not having the same kind of repetitive structure. You have to keep it exciting for yourself, even if it's doing something that's maybe less fun than something else you could do.
Yeah. Josh, how about yourself?
Yeah, so I actually have to agree with that, mixing up the routine. When I took it, I tried to study for 1 to 2 hours a day on the weekdays, and be that either in the evenings or during lunchtime at the office, on my commute home. Just whenever I could fit it in, I did. And honestly, I tried to save most of the weekends to do stuff that I still wanted to do. So, yeah, it was a sacrifice. You're sacrificing a lot of time to study for these exams, but I wanted to make sure that, still go out and see friends or go to the art institute, do things that, make it so that my mind is not 100% on architecture all the time, because that would lead to burnout for me for sure.
Get some
but
fresh
yeah,
air.
so it's just basically kind of mixing it up and, give yourself a break, basically.
Logan, did I hear you have a comment there?
I was just saying, you got to get some fresh air if you're stuck inside all day. Got to
Totally.
go for a walk, go for a run.
Yeah.
Go play tennis.
Jenny, how about you?
I gotta say it's the exact opposite. So if anyone's out there
agree.
listening,
I'm with you.
if anyone's listening, this is great because really different answers. There's no wrong answer. But I have, I'm working full time. I work at a firm full time, and I teach at the time of studying. I'm not teaching during COVID, but at the time of studying, I was teaching a 6-credit-hour course and coordinating courses with my local university. And, I'm married and I have a daughter. And so every single moment of my day from 5 o'clock till 11:30 at night was scheduled. And it had to kind of be that way in order to get all these things done. But I firmly believe that you find time for the things that you want to do. So I would get to school, I would teach my class, I would go to the office and work, I would pick up my daughter at 6, we would have dinner, bedtime routine lasts for hours. If you know what I'm talking about out there, give me a shout out. And then I would study for an hour or 2 hours, and I didn't always have energy for that, and I didn't always get it done. But if it's in my routine and it's part of my schedule, then I have time for it and I'm not making an excuse. If it's not in my routine, then I'll never get to it. So for me, it was really, really important to have it there. And ultimately, it was just the guilt. Self-imposed guilt is really some strong stuff. And, I'm glad it's finally over, but that was the driving force. It's like I'd get to my end of my day and I knew that was part of my schedule, and I felt like if I didn't do it, I just felt guilty. And it's not super healthy, but that's how I did it.
I did about the same thing, Jenny, when I did it. And
Yeah.
it's funny, every time I talk about this, I had certain places I would go to study, and I would always order the same food at those places. So I
Yeah.
get like, I'm like dying for those things I used to eat, which is really funny. And the same thing with guilt, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, as we were saying here, everyone has what's cool about I think this conversation is that a lot of people come to this and they're like, well, there's this one way that I'm supposed to learn about how to do this. And so what is the one way? And what's actually true is there isn't one way. There's different
Right.
ways. And so it's about finding a way that works for you. And Jenny, like you, I needed the guilt. So I
Mhm.
I pre-bought my guilt because there was no way I was rescheduling my tests. So
That's smart. I think that the in-carve is actually pretty smart to do it that way, where you have to schedule so far out and it costs just enough money to make you feel like you have to go through with it.
yeah,
And and if you're a goal-minded person, you're going to be ready to go when that test date shows up. So
yep,
good advice is to just schedule it, even if you're not ready, because the
yep.
day's going to come and you're going to have to go in.
Good motivation to get ready. Jenny, I'm going to move
Yeah.
on to our next question here, which is about staying calm through the chaos. How'd you do it?
Yeah. I wasn't calm. If you're coming for advice on how to be calm, you're asking the wrong lady. I did my best, and I probably thought that I was calm. But I think if you ask anyone in my personal life, my husband for sure would tell you that I was a total mess. And like the last 2 weeks before the exam, I would kind of become a mess.
Mm,
Prior to that, I would just be kind of nervous and I'd do my best and kind of plan and just trying to trust my system that I had made. But then the last 2 weeks will come and I just kind of start getting really anxious and nervous. And at the end, like you said, like I told you, I had gone through a lot of ups and downs with this. I had had a lot of barriers, a lot of weird things happen, a lot of anomalies. I would tell my friends these stuff that happened in the testing centers, and they were just like, "What? That nothing like that has ever even crossed my mind that that
yeah,
could be a possibility of what could happen in there." So at the end, my last exams, I just sort of tried to be a little more rational about it all, and I failed before. If I fail again, I'll take it again. It's not going to
yeah.
change who I am as a person. It's only a few hours of my life. And that kind of rational thinking helped calm me down the closer I would get to the exams. And maintaining the schedule helped keep me calm, leading up to that point. So I guess that's
Josh, how about yourself?
Yeah, so I would have to say, a lot of mine was kind of rational thinking too, because the way my mindset is kind of, yeah, there's kind of this internalized chaos going in your brain, but it's almost a bit of a structured chaos, which I know is an oxymoron, of course. But for me, the main thing is just kind of trust in the work that I put in. Like I knew I was doing what I could do to pass these exams. So, and kind of going back to, like final reviews back in school for studio, for me, it's just like I trusted the work, that I put out, I trusted my work ethic. It's all going to be fine. I did what I could and I'm putting everything into it. So the outcome's going to be great. And I mean, for the most part, it was. I only had one, I messed up on the PPP vignette and that was it. So I had to take PPP again, but, for the rest of it, that really was it for me. And, that trust is kind of what structured the chaos of everything going around in bit and being able to kind of compartmentalize it in my brain to actually
Mhm.
get through this and remain calm on the surface anyways.
Yeah, that's interesting. The trust. I'm remembering like when I would when I did it back in 2005, which is of course a long time ago. I remember like wanting to get there, like getting to the exam center like way early. Like I remember trying to like remove potential for anxiety out of my world, like getting there early. So there was just no stress about, that. And then I almost remember like pumping myself up, you know, um, just sort of like telling yourself that you're going to be able to do it, and like you've got this, almost like, artificially hyping yourself up just to kind of give yourself at least a jolt of confidence going into the test. Logan, how about yourself? How did you stay calm through the chaos?
Yeah, I think I think architects are kind of rational by nature, so it's a similar thing. At least a lot of architects. I there's only two outcomes from the test. One is that you pass and everything's good and you can move on to the next one or you're finished up, and the other is that you didn't pass. And what that means is it really doesn't mean anything. It just means you're going to have to take it again at some point, which isn't the end of the world. It's
Yep.
it's something you can overcome. It's kind of just it's a repetitive thing that you have to do to get it over with. So I was probably more stressed out by other things happening in my life than I was by the actual test. Because like Josh said, it's I put the work in. That doesn't mean there weren't some curveballs on the test that made me worried the day of, but I
Yeah.
would be more stressed out about trying to balance my work responsibilities with studying after the test too. So, or studying for the test. So at one point I had to reschedule a test because a work trip came up, and that was annoying because I had been ramping up studying
Oh
for it, and I
man.
had to cut it short.
Yeah.
The same thing happened at the beginning of COVID where I had to reschedule. For, and then this is a whole other situation that I'm not going to get into, but I had just a ton of car trouble getting back from North Carolina to Pennsylvania where I was taking the test. So
Mhm.
that was a whole other situation. But so the test itself, it's kind of straightforward. It's you just got to balance the other things in your life also, and think about how everything kind of fits together.
Yeah. Um, hmm. I was having a thought there about two thoughts. One is funny. I was just on a call earlier this morning, and we were joking about how NCARB they try to remind people who are taking the test that they're not testing you on being an expert. So like the level of the test is not an expert level. In fact, it's a rather rudimentary or lower level. And so of course what they always say is they're not testing for expertise or for expert level, just minimum competence, which I just think is really funny that we've often joked that we're going to give out T-shirts to people who passed all tests and that say minimally competent, which I would probably wear.
I want that shirt, actually.
I know.
I'd wear
Yeah,
it.
me too.
Yeah.
I mean that's architecture in a nutshell. You have to know a little bit about a lot of things and
Honestly, yep.
be able to combine them. So
The other thought is just to say to everybody, I like to say this a lot so that everyone kind of, again, calms their anxiety, is that it's incredibly rare that somebody takes all 6 tests and doesn't fail at least one. So most people that we interact with, have at least, one, get tripped up at least once. So pretty normal, kind of
Or 4
experience for people.
times, I think that's pretty common too, is failing 4 times.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, a
So
few of
you
my
don't have to be
friends failed PPP around the same time I did. As bad as it sounds, it made me feel a little better about it.
It
The
does,
thing
right?
is that the thing is that people don't come in and announce that they failed, So
Yeah.
Exactly.
you don't know that you're in really good company.
Yes. Well, here I run a company where we ask people to let us know whether they pass or fail. So you're hearing it. The only other source more credible than us is NCARB itself, and they won't tell you. But I'll tell you that we hear it all the time that someone gets tripped up. And yeah, sure, most people pass more than they don't, but it's common. So don't feel like you have to be perfect. And I've had colleagues in the past who they fail their first or second test, and man, it really sideswipes them and knocks them down, and they really have a hard time getting back at it. So just want
I
to
think
call that out.
the thing that helped me through it is one of my friends said to me, if it were easy, it wouldn't really be worth it.
Yep.
Everyone would do it, and not everyone's doing it. It's actually a hard thing to do, and because it's hard, makes it actually valuable. And if you think about other professions, they fail also. People go in to take the bar exam and they fail,
Mhm. Yep.
And it's just, you just take it again.
Yep. That's what
until
Mikey
you
Newman
until
used
you
to
get it
say to
right.
us. He used to say, if you guys were all, MBA students and not architects, everyone, half of you would just go take the test without studying, knowing that just based on the laws of probability, you'd probably pass a couple without even studying. He's like, but architects tend to be perfectionists and so forth, and don't want to fail, so they'll, they wouldn't do it. So, in
Yeah.
any case, of course, we want you to pass and so forth, but just a reminder that it's not always, no one's perfect. As we move on to our next question here, Logan, why don't we start with you? One of the biggest, problems with this whole experience is, not wanting to study and that pull to do something else. So how were you able to overcome that pull and not study, like being tired or being distracted or whatever? How did you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been touching on this a little bit already, but if you're stuck inside all day, haven't left the house because you're working from home, it can be, right now, it can be difficult. You want to get outside, you want to go do something. So again, it's sort of just finding that balance that works for you of saying, I'm going to study for this amount of time and then I'm going to go do something fun to rejuvenate myself. Or saying, I'm not going to study today and I'll study a little bit extra tomorrow to make up for it. It's finding that balance and kind of negotiating with yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
then again, we keep mentioning it, but setting that date that's always kind of lingering, trying to make you guilty, like Jenny said.
Yeah.
You have something
Jenny,
to
how about
work
you?
for then.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Jenny, how about you? How did you overcome the pull to not study?
Right. So I just have one answer, and that's just to schedule the exam.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to, even if you're not sure what's going on in your life, just look at the calendar, pick a day, and schedule it. And for me personally, I just have enough of a fear of failure, which you'd think I would have overcome at this point, but a fear of failure and personal guilt and desire to succeed, that the closer I get to that date, the harder I'm going to work and the harder I'm going to study to make sure I'm as prepared as possible. And I think the field of architecture draws people that have a lot of those traits. So if you just get over the hump of being afraid of the exam, just schedule it. You won't have much option left after that. You have to go take it. So that's how I got over that pull to not study, I guess.
That's awesome. Josh, how about you?
Yeah, honestly, mine is kind of a combination of both Jenny and Logan's answers. What I really did is, there were plenty of times while I was studying that something came up. Like friends were like, hey, let's go to a Bulls game or something like that. And honestly, I just kind of said yes to stuff like that with the caveat that I was just going to make sure that time that I was going to spend studying, gets made up on another day, including like a Saturday or Sunday, especially if it was rainy or, snowy out or anything like that. It was really just, attempting to find some sort of semblance of balance in, this crazy thing, basically. And then also, set a date for the exam and just know what your 0 hour is, basically. So
Yeah. Set a date, set a date, set a date, set a date. All right. And I suppose what's implied in that, but just to be clear, I like to say buy the exam, because for me it was the money that like I did not want to like have to part ways with. So
exactly.
it
And
was
Right.
I should say right now it's a difficult time. I mean, we have a really
Yep.
high unemployment rate.
Yep.
My firm just had a layoff, laid off a large number of people.
Mhm.
And there's, if you look across the country, I can't remember what percentage, so I won't quote anything, but it's high.
Yep.
So if you're in a situation where you're not making any income, but you want to take these exams, I encourage you to talk to your local AIA because they may have a fund available to
Mm.
help you pay for the exams.
Mhm.
That's something that I was able to take advantage of.
Wow, that's awesome. I did
Yeah.
not know about that. What AI chapter?
I'm with AIA Colorado,
Okay.
and it was, I can't remember the name of the fund, but sometimes it's right there on the website, but sometimes you have to poke around and ask questions. And maybe if they don't have a fund yet, they just want someone to encourage them to create one. So, or, ask if there isn't anything at your firm, ask around and see if they'll make a policy that can help you pass.
Yeah.
No problem in asking.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for that one. Let's move on. Let's see here to our next question. I love this question. Josh, let's start with you. What rituals do you have before and after testing to keep you on track and, try to have some joy, if that's even possible, taking tests?
Yeah, so for me, one of the things I did is I made sure I always took my exams on Saturday mornings, which I know weird, right? But I took the day before off, and I basically kept that as just a relaxed day, get your mind relaxed and kind of just into a good state to actually take this, super stressful exam. I mean, our prometric system or center, Mark, I know you remember from when you took it, wasn't the best, although I know they recently renovated the Chicago one.
Mhm.
And then after the exam, what I would do is I would either go to the Lego store that's here in Chicago or the Chicago Architecture Foundation shop, which also had Legos, and I would buy a new Lego architecture set and, build it in that afternoon. And, with some choice beverages or two, but and that's kind of how was a bit of rewarding for taking the exam, but also just you know I started anyways, like really looking forward to that. I was like, oh, I'm gonna build some Legos today afterwards. So
Yeah,
that's kind of how it kept it in, quote unquote enjoyable for me.
that's awesome. You know what? I'm having a thought here, so I'm just gonna say it now. This idea that Jenny, that thought about AI Colorado helping you pay for your test. Everyone who's listening, if you guys know of a program in your world, whether that's in your AI chapter or your firm or your school or your whatever, I'm realizing we need to compile a list of resources like that and share that with everybody. So would you guys throw your thoughts either into GoToWebinar here or on our community page about any resources that you know of where you can basically get free, get your test comped for free. I would be very happy to share that widely with everyone so that everybody knows that those resources are available. So just want to pause there and say that. So everyone, if you're listening, if you could do that, again, what we'll do is we'll take all that information, publish it for everybody, and do our own research as well to see if we can find any other resources. It's really helpful. Jenny, do you want to share your rituals about, before and after taking the test and how you made it fun?
Sure. How I made it fun. Let's see, when I started the first three, I didn't have much rituals. It was just sort of chaos. Like I said, I wasn't very calm. I was just trying to get to the finish line. And then I had read somewhere, do it on a Monday, because then you have 2 days before, 2 full days to study and calm down. And I was like, well, that's a great idea. And the first exams, I was working with a firm that didn't really reimburse us. But then I moved to a firm where you get paid to go sit for the exam and you get reimbursed for the test or whatever. So then I was like, okay, instead of doing it on a Saturday afternoon, I can do it during the week. I could take some PTO. So for my last exams, I scheduled them back to back, Thursday, Friday, and I took the whole week of PTO. And I thought that helped a lot because I had like 5 days basically to sit and focus and not worry about work and not worry about anything and feel very comfortable. So if I could go back to the beginning, I would do that for every exam. But I thought that was really great advice, was to give yourself at least 2 full days before the exam to feel like you're ready. And then I don't know if I had anything else going on. Rituals. So rewarding myself.
Yeah.
I kind of had a thought in mind where at the end I would take all the money that I spent on the exams and I would take the equivalent amount of money and buy myself a nice gift with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I kind of for a while thought about what it would be at the as we get closer to the end. I knew exactly what I wanted. I was gonna, and this isn't promotional, like I'm not being paid to say this, but I was gonna get a big green egg barbecue smoker for my backyard. And
awesome.
So as soon as I finished, my husband bought that for me, and we've been in the backyard ever since.
That's a good idea. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Logan, how about you? What were your rituals before and after, and how did you celebrate and gift yourself, etc.?
Yeah, I think I found out through taking the test that I'm a pretty ritualistic person, which I don't think I knew beforehand. But I took the test on Mondays also, so that would give me 2 full days to study. I took the last 2 and like as early in the morning just because they were longer tests and those were the only times available. But typically I would take them kind of midday, so I wouldn't have to wake up super early and rush over there. The night before, I would have a good dinner, good healthy dinner. I would do other things. I'd get outside, get fresh air, which I keep repeating. I would make sure I went to bed early, which is super important. Get good rest, even though you might be a little hyped up, getting excited for the test. I would cook myself a big breakfast in the morning, so I'd have some energy, drink some coffee, get the caffeine flowing.
Yeah.
Have a good music, soundtrack to get you pumped up for the test, whatever you're into. And then once you're done taking it, it's similar thing to Jenny and Josh. I would reward myself with a present. I'd get a new camera item. I shoot film photography, so I'd get some film, or I'd get some kind of fun toy for that. Buy a video game, go buy a nice big dinner, drink some beer, do something like that.
Yep, that's awesome. I love this question. I love this idea, and I think it. At the end of the day, everyone who takes these tests walks away and says they're a better architect. It's a huge accomplishment in their career that they'll hold on to for the rest of their life. So that's a reward in its own. But to get through it, having these sorts of things is really awesome, and does, even though we all snicker, like, yeah, right, fun or whatever. It does make it enjoyable, I suppose, to get to the finish line. And forget, who cares if you passed or not? You did it. Go get your Legos, go get your beer, go get your whatever. That's cool.
Yeah.
If we go to our last question here, I guess let's wrap this up kind of at a high level. And Jenny, we'll start with you. What's sort of the number one piece of advice you'd give yourself or anyone else who's thinking about taking these tests?
I just think it's really important to remind yourself that just getting to the exams is incredibly difficult and a huge accomplishment. So, being accepted to school and getting yourself through school and being employed in an office somewhere and earning your IDP, those are huge accomplishments for most people. And you're surrounded by people that have accomplished those things, so it's hard to see just really how successful you are as a person to be able to get to a point where you can sign on to Prometric and actually sign up for the exam. So that's a huge accomplishment in and of itself. And then studying for the exam is a lot of work. And I think you should take, this is advice that most people probably won't take, but I think it's really valuable if you hear me out. I think you should take some time after the exam to celebrate just that you studied and you took the exam. And that means that you're going, when the provisional results are available, I suggest you don't look at them. You just wait, because you're going to get an email the next day anyway. So just spend the rest of that day feeling good about yourself and reminding yourself of how hard you've worked and how successful you are. And no matter what happened in that exam, what you just did was a huge accomplishment.
That's awesome. What a great thought there. You're right. This is very much like a mind game. And why not walk out of there without knowing? And that's a great
Just
idea.
Celebrate.
Yeah. Logan, how about yourself? What are your thoughts on the number one piece of advice for folks?
I'll just say I like the self-restraint to not look at the score. I had to do that every time. My number one advice to give is, and this worked for me, is the order you take the test in isn't the order that I took them in, wasn't the order that they laid them out in. I think it worked best for me to kind of group all the contract related tests together and take those kind of one after another, because you kind of build this critical mass of information that you've learned about contracts, and then to take PPD and PDD together, because again, there's a lot of overlap and similar information between them. I took PPD and PDD 2 weeks apart, which I felt was the right thing to do. It ended up working out, and there's so much overlap between them. It really helps and saves you some time from studying.
Thank you, Logan. That's a great one as well. Josh, what are your thoughts on this? The number one thing you'd share it with everyone.
I would say don't make any setbacks into, or, any setbacks or, exam fails, anything like that in the mountains. One of the things, personally, that got to me a little bit after I failed PPP, and I wish I would have given myself that advice back then, because, it kind of knocked me on my butt for a few months and I wasn't making any progress forward. So it's just kind of like, take a moment, step back, be like, all right, this isn't the end. This isn't a huge deal. And I'm just going to get through it. If you need to, feel sad or something for a bit, allow yourself to do so, and just say, hey, this was a natural part of it. And then once that feeling passes, keep going back into it, because it's just a bump along the way. It's not it's not a barrier.
Yep. That's awesome, Josh. Well, first, I just want to say thank you, Jenny, Logan, and Josh, for sharing your experiences and your thoughts about getting through, the stress of just the exams in general, but also how life can kind of hold you back. There's a really good conversation going on right now in our ARE community as a result of what we're talking on here. If you just go to our community.blackspectacles.com and click on ARE Live, and then you'll find the thread. It's the most current one. First, Jenny, Logan, and Josh, I would ask if you guys wouldn't mind going over there and responding to some of the comments. Some of the questions are directly to you and questions and so forth. So I also appreciate everyone who's responding and kind of giving feedback to other people who have posted comments and questions on the ARE community. So really cool to see. Again, like this exam thing is a mind game, so everyone's got a little different needs as they kind of go through it. So really cool to see that conversation going there. Our next ARE live broadcast that we're going to have is on October 15th. We're going to review a mock exam for project development and documentation with Mike Newman. and we'll cover a variety of knowledge and skills relating to that test. You guys know that this is a big one, so a little extra studying is always valuable, so don't miss it. We're going to post the link in the chat box here, or you can just go to blackspectacles.com/podcast to sign up. To learn more about Black Spectacles ARE exam prep offerings, there was a couple of questions in the community about what resources to use to study. Well, we would proudly say that we have a really great test prep offering. And so you can go to blackspectacles.com and you can check out some of the free course videos. I told you guys at the beginning that there was going to be a lucky winner of our Black Spectacles t-shirt for someone who posted in our ARE community. And David Ellis, congratulations, you've won our t-shirt. So we're going to reach out to you via email to get size and shipping information and so forth. So as a reminder, next time, if you guys haven't, or even if you don't care about the t-shirt, just go over to the ARE community. There's a lot of really good information there. The purpose of that community is that's a place where you can kind of achieve two things. One, it's a great place for inspiration to hear other people's stories and how they did it. It's also a good place to go if you have a really specific question, because we have experts who are on call who answer questions, really detailed, annoying, frustrating questions about the test. There are people on our team who are licensed architects who answer questions there. So it's a really great resource for that. But as I said, also just to kind of get inspired, because there's a lot of people who've done this and fought through, getting licensed. For those of you who are ready to start using some of these tips and so forth, I mentioned that we have a coupon code for you. So here's the discount code. It's ARELIVE 091720YT to get a 15% discount for the entire duration of your Black Spectacles ARE prep membership. And then finally, tomorrow, we're going to email everybody a follow-up about today's live broadcast. So please let us know what you think and share any suggestions that you may have. I promise that we read every word that you write and use them to tune our next episodes. So thanks for tuning in.